Hey friends, here with the second devlog in the series of the creation of my little FooBar tutorial game. Uh, I came to the realization directly before recording this that I'm pretty much always going to be doing these on Saturday or Sunday evening, which means that you're always going to see me when I'm at my most disheveled. So that's great for my view of professionalism, but that's okay. Uh, just finished. I pretty much was working on this start of the day to the end of the day, probably about 12 hours now. Uh, but good time. I'm pretty pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed myself throughout the duration of the experience with working on this stuff. Definitely feel like I'm getting more of an early level feel for the engine. I can already tell that I'm doing some stuff in a pretty bad way in the interest of staying on the timeline. So I just finished all of the things that I have for my first milestone, which technically doesn't expire till next Wednesday. But if this past week was anything to go off of, I'm not going to be able to really work on this in a meaningful capacity on the weekdays. I'm doing too much work. So I was able to go over and complete the stuff for this milestone. We'll get started on the stuff for the next milestone, which is going to be the early block mesh phase. Start actually getting game content in there. But have some stuff that I'll show off and talk about for a little bit, and then dive right into it. I will say one of the things that has started causing me maybe some very mild concern with the current setup that I'm using here is that I feel pressured to meet the milestones, which is good. That's why I set up the milestones. It also means that if I can keep up with them, I'll be on track to actually completing the game at a certain period of time. But the downside means sometimes I think I will prioritize meeting these milestones rather than learning something about the engine. Right now, I think the factor of motivation outweighs the loss of it being specifically like subtractive from my learning. Certainly this past week has been a great learning experience, but more on that to come, I'm sure. So if that changes, I will reevaluate the structure. But for now, we're doing good. Why don't I dive in? We can just look at the game, and I can tell you a little bit about what I set up. So here we are now in the test gym as the overall starting place as opposed to any actual game content. Realistically, as the little task sheet that I've made for myself. God, I've become a producer, the very thing I once thought to destroy. I've set up for myself. A lot of this is just going to be, hey, can we get some form of world dynamics? So unstable and unbreakable platforms, pressure plates and switches to activate things, die on hit shit, moving platforms, sprint. It's funny to even think of it like that. Save data, level data. So all very straightforward. Save data, level data stuff is pretty easy to implement. So for instance, I have level information that's set up with how many coins there are in each level. It's not dynamically detecting, oh, there are 4 coins here, though I probably could be doing that. But I set that in data somewhere for this is the correct amount of coins that you get per each level, and it has some other stuff that's associated with it as well. The save data is relatively interesting. I've set up a debug HUD just to go over and start like getting more comfortable with establishing my own debug and being able to read that. So like effectively every single thing that you see here that's being written on the screen is operating off of some scripted behavior, and so I have a bunch of debug text if I'm like, why is this switch in particular not working, to go over and help try to determine stuff on the fly while I'm working the engine rather than trying to pull up a details pane somewhere. While I have debug enabled, I have a bunch of functionality that I can go over and utilize, one of which is debug saving data and debug loading data. So that just loaded the previous information. Also, I have the debug replay set to, oh, well, do I? Yeah. Oh, you can't do it when you're already dead. That's the trick. So, and then I also have toggled the music off on debug because Jesus Christ, it took 5 seconds for that to get extremely annoying. So, yeah, that is the basics of that. I'm going to restart. Oh, I need to null check my audio. Pausing on the debug menu, disable. But if we get in here, all of this stuff works. It's just a bunch of moving platforms. So, or a bunch of different world dynamics is what I've taken to calling them. So you can go over and collect all the coins at the debug level. And then also player sprint. Look at that. Unlimited stamina as it has right now. Have a couple different interactable types. So pressure plates, if you activate them, stuff happens. And so they can also be activated so that they're permanently activated, or if we come over here, they can be activated so once you're done stepping on them, they don't happen. I have a couple different variants of objects moving that I probably will find to be useful. So just basic setup, all of that can be utilize whatever power system is required for that. So for instance, you can go over and interact, and that can adjust multiple different moving platform things. These are all just copies of the same moving structure. We have unstable platforms, so that one goes over and pops. That text was there for shorter than I would have liked. It's probably a bug that I need to fix. That it's unsteady and then will fall. Since it's a debug level, I have it then take you back up, but realistically it would just fall. Then in addition to that, I have ones that straight up disappear afterward. So they give you a little debug text saying that it's shaky, but then you straight up disappear, and then the music comes back on, so we're all having a terrible time. And so you can kind of create a little platforming challenge with these guys going over and falling and destroying themselves. I don't know. There's not a ton else. This is really mostly what I've been working on. These platforms respond to physics objects, so you can go over. It got stuck on the ledge there. You can go over and get this guy to react to stuff. You can have multiple power requirements for things. So like this one can need both this being active and also for this switch to be active here. So I'm gonna disable it, and it is. You actually can see it's power 1 of 2, and then power set to false as it stands right now. So that's this actually gives a good amount of different interactable capabilities that I'm pretty happy with. So for instance, this is using all of the systems that we've already pre-established here in terms of like the ability to power shit on and off with pressure plates and the like, but is an example of how you can use it in some other capacity. Oh, and then we have death touch items, which is the floor there, and then all of these guys here are just if you hit them, you die. Simple as that. So that is the basics of what I've been working on. I really haven't gotten a lot else done. All of the other things have existed. Basic save data that exists for the game, basic level data that exists, interactables in the form of coins, switches, platforms, integrating physical objects into those things, and a couple different ways that platforms can move. Only other thing that I think is worth noting, we'll need to exit play mode for this one. I have 2 different setups currently for moving objects around, one of which is moving them along a spline, so like going over and setting up a spline and they just follow this path. So for instance, that platform that I jumped on earlier to grab that coin is there, or just a binary A-B position. So in effect, it can go to point 1, point 2, point 3. If we actually look at this in the editor, all of these have some super basic variables to help hopefully give as much diversity to these as physically possible, like the ability to reverse, to loop, and to stop. and then, or also actually I have destroy on self. And so for instance, these platforms here, I think I call them death platforms. Where do I put them? They're not bubbles, they're not coins. Death items? No. Interactables, platforms. Death drop. Death drop 1 and death drop 2 just destroy themselves after they go over and move down a little bit, and then you can set the amount of time and all of that stuff. So that's all been pretty helpful. It's really only like 7 or 8 somewhat scripted systems. It's not a ton, but if you just, by virtue of the fact that you can use these in a variety of ways and have a couple different inputs that you can go over and futz around with, the hope is that you can get a lot of utility out of them. And then also the ability, I've started going over and doing my best to categorize things with actual components that I can slap onto things. So like Death on Touch is a component. You can just go over and put it on a crate, and well, you can't put it on a crate that way. You can put it on a crate, and then if we go over and you touch that crate, you'll die, which is great. It's made setting all of this stuff up a lot easier. I think the bigger one is Power, which is both a receiver and a sender. And so you can go over and just say if something's powered, it can either be interacted with or it can be powered on touch or trigger or something like that. That's cool. I will say I found a lot of pain working in the editor, which I wasn't really expecting. I always kind of thought that this would be a really clean experience. I feel like I've always heard a bunch of amazing things about it. But there's just a bunch of really small inconveniences that maybe it's just a workflow thing. I'll adapt to that over time. But I've been really bumping up against. The biggest one by far is I've taken some time to go over and put together this platforming gym, which is literally just where I'm going over and throwing random fucking prototypes out. It's not meant to be the most complex thing in the world, but it'd be really nice if I could go over and be like, oh, I made a death axe. That's a trap. You go on the platform, you go on the pressure plate, and then big axe falls down to the ground. That's like one of the most classic video game things you can possibly go over and have. And so I'd really like to go over and just save that immediately as a blueprint, just drag and drop it in here and be like, all right, great. I now can drag and drop that anywhere that exists in the game, and that structure is perfect for me. That is not the case. Which, frankly, it's a fairly minor inconvenience. I can go over here and be like, new blueprint, make an actor, go over and copy all of the stuff that exists in the scene, paste it in the actor, center it on origin, and then I have access to that. It's not a major inconvenience, but it does mean that I'm going to have to go over and like manually organize all my shit rather than going over and being able to automate it. And there's a bunch of small things that have been kind of like that. The messing with the collision statistics and mechanics so far have been a little nutty, and I feel like require more customization than I would naturally expect. But once again, I think we're at the stage where I'm still learning UE5 workflow stuff, so I'll revisit that in a couple weeks. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I will have actual cool levels for you guys to see next week. Peace.